going on, Eagles Nation? I know it's been a hot minute, but like you guys, I had to come down from that Super Bowl high. I mean, this has been one of the craziest feelings throughout my life. I don't know about you guys, but every day since the Super Bowl, I think I've worn some sort of Super Bowl LIX gear. I mean, it's just insane. So had to sleep a little bit. I didn't sleep for like 2 weeks straight. But now that all that is settled down, we're getting back into the swing of things, back to business for the Philadelphia Eagles. Free agency and NFL draft. Myles Garrett, Abdul Carter. Who do you want? Now, no, I don't think that the Eagles realistically have a shot at either of those guys, but we're going to talk about if they do and what they might need to give up to get there if they do. We're going to talk about some other guys in the draft that I think would be solid picks for where they're at if they decide to move up a little bit or if they decide to move up a lot of it. So I don't realistically think that the Browns are going to just say, hey, here's Myles Garrett on a silver platter, take him. Now, it does feel that way with Howie Roseman, the way most of these negotiations go, but it's going to take more than a first-round pick and Bryce Huff. Every Philadelphia Eagles fan is in my comments like, oh, let's send Bryce Huff over there. Let's send a first-round pick. No fucking shit, Sherlock. No shit we want to give the, paperweight pass rusher that hasn't done anything yet is going to get a ring for it. We got about as much info on Bryce Huff this year as we did with James Bradberry. But those two for Eagles fans, I think, are a given. Bryce Huff, first-round pick. Then it's going to take some kind of a young player. Browns immediately are going to be going for Cooper DeJean, I'm sure, Devontae Smith. Somebody like that can immediately flip the switch on their franchise. No, those guys are untouchables. Guys that I would be willing to give up. Somebody maybe like Sidney Brown, where he's kind of overshadowed by a lot of these safeties. I know the Eagles still need depth at safety, but Sidney Brown on another team could be all-pro safety, I think. He's got the potential. Somebody maybe like Nakobe Dean, where I love Nakobe Dean. Don't get me wrong. I want him to stay on this team, but the Eagles are going to have to choose to pay Zach Bond. If they decide to package Nakobe Dean in there, well, they're probably going to draft a linebacker, somebody like Kobe King. So there's a lot of different ways that they can kind of solve this puzzle. I don't want to get rid of any of those guys. I want to be clear. I don't want to get rid of anyone. But the NFL is a business, and unfortunately, you have to make those tough decisions. So I think it's going to take a first-round pick, Bryce Huff, which they're not going to be excited about, we'll be excited about. Somebody like, let's just say hypothetically, Sidney Brown. And then even then, I think it's going to take a little bit more than that. Now, I don't think it's going to take another first-round pick because Myles Garrett turns 30 this December. But I do think it's going to take something like a third or a fourth. Now, if you make that offer, you might have a deal. I mean, and for the Eagles, that would actually be a legit, good, smart trade, I think, because they're getting more out of Myles Garrett than they would get with those guys on their team and that first-round pick, whoever they bring in. Myles Garrett is in his prime right now. The Eagles are in their Super Bowl window right now. It's like an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, and the two are coming together for another Lombardi in Philadelphia. It's a beautiful thing, Philadelphia Eagles fans. Stay with me now. But, I mean, that's all, fine, fun, and fairy tales. Some of the biggest pros, I think, like I said about Myles, he's in his prime. He's 6'4", 271. The dude has an insane reach and extension. He was also the Defensive Player of the Year last year, so he's coming off of that. Not in 2024, but 2023. He's a 4-time first-team All-Pro from 2020 to 2024. And the dude wants to compete for a Super Bowl. So he's going to be just as hungry, I think, as Abdul Carter. Neither of those guys bringing them in is going to be a bad thing. But some of the cons is he turns 30 this year. It's more capital that they're going to have to give up for a guy that is going to age, and they're not going to really get their return on investment unless they get at least one Super Bowl minimum. And that's being nice. And also, unfortunately, Myles Garrett, like I said, is turning 30 this year. He's in his prime earning year, so he's going to want to be paid like it. The Philadelphia Eagles can offer whatever deal they want, where they're like, hey, we're going to give you a 4-year deal, and then we're going to give you most of the money in year 4. They can do whatever they want with that, but this guy's going to want to get paid either way. And eventually, it's going to bite the Eagles in the ass because they can keep playing this game, but eventually it's all going to stack up where they have to pay all these guys in the same year. I'm not complaining. Howie Roseman is the best person at playing the game, but they need to be aware of that if they were to potentially pull the trigger for someone like Myles Garrett. Let's talk about the young buck. I think Abdul Carter would be a great pick for the Philadelphia Eagles if they can move up for him. Immediately, you're going to have, the negative Nancy's in the chat. There's no way that they'll get him. He's going to be a top 5, top 1 pick. They said the same thing about Jalen Carter. I remember some people saying that Jalen Carter would be a top 2 pick in that draft. And then what happened? Howie Roseman moved up for him. This one feels a little bit different, though, because Jalen Carter didn't grow up a Philadelphia Eagles fan like Abdul Carter did. If I'm Howie Roseman and if I'm in my office, that's the answer to the test for me right there. You're getting a young, proven guy who's a fan of this city, who's a fan of this team, who understands what it takes to play for Eagles fans and wants to do that. I would give up everything for someone like that. I mean, if this guy's going to be a proven NFL threat, how could you not want him on your team? I mean, I would be willing to give up the house, I think, for Abdul Carter. That's me potentially just to move up, just to grab somebody like that. That's where I would say, hey, somebody like maybe Sidney Brown or like Nakobe Dean, somebody that's, hey, not a bad player at all. But if you go out and put Abdul Carter on this team as a Philadelphia Eagles fan with Saquon Barkley and that offensive line like they're in their prime, there's no doubt in my mind that you're bringing another trophy back to Philadelphia next year and probably the following year and maybe even a couple years after, because Abdul would be here. He would be structured to be a Philadelphia Eagle for his career. He's young. He's proven. He's got a lot of room to grow. He's only 21 years old. He's got a great burst off the offensive line. But some of the cons to this guy are he's only played 1 year at edge. He needs to clean up his hands. We do know that Vic Fangio did a great job of helping Nolan Smith really transition from college football to the NFL and his hand technique and doing a great job with that. But he's also a little bit limited too. He's 6'3", 250. So he's not quite, the threat that Myles Garrett is at 6'4" with that long frame that can reach and grab a QB. He's not far behind 20 pounds and an inch under, but he definitely doesn't have, that Myles Garrett frame. Myles Garrett is going to be the only player that has that. So it's an interesting hypothetical. Some of the other players that I could see actually Howie drafting that I would be happy with is starting off with Texas A&M edge Nick Scourton. I think that he would be pretty solid. He's somebody that had, I believe, 5 sacks last year in his first season with the Aggies. And 28 hurries. He's 6'4", 285 pounds. So this dude is a heavy dude. I mean, they may want him to slim down a little bit more as an NFL edge, but honestly, I say keep that weight on. Vic, get him some cheeseburgers and let him beef up and, kick ass and take names, baby. Catan. So Jalen Walker would be another bulldog that the Philadelphia Eagles could bring in. I think would be a solid pick. Somebody that wasn't as good as Nolan Smith, I would say, coming out of college, but same thing that I just said about Abdul Carter. Vic Fangio knows how to work on that stuff with these guys. He did it with Nolan Smith. I'm sure he could do it with Jalen Walker too. Who would you Philadelphia Eagles fans like to see be the edge rusher this year? Because unfortunately, Josh Sweat's a free agent. He's going to want to get paid. He's about to be in his prime earning years. And Brandon Graham might retire. So the Eagles are going to have a big hole at edge. Who do you Philadelphia Eagles fans want to see take the reins? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.